The danger of a double-minded life. Have you ever felt completely exhausted from making decisions? Not because the decision was difficult, but because part of what you wanted one thing while another part of you wanted something else. One part of you, say, wanted to trust God. Another part wanted to do your own thing. One part wanted to move forward. Another part of you said, I just want to stay where I'm at. I like this. This is comfortable. Another part wants to wait. And the other part of you wants to move fast forward, right on. James now exposes one of the most dangerous conditions a believer can live with. The double-minded. We talked about that the last couple weeks. But now he's going a little deeper in James 1:8 that we'll get to. A double-minded person has a double divided heart, an unsettled life. But today's question is, why is a double-mindedness so dangerous to a believer's life? Why is it so dangerous to be like one day this way and one day that day, or let me do this and then let me do that, and you're just bouncing all around? The Amplified in James 1:8 says, being a double-minded man, unstable and restless in all his ways, in everything he thinks, he feels, or decides. Man, double-minded has more to do with our thinking. Has to do with our feelings too. One day it's like, yay, yay, yay. Next day it's like, boo, boo, boo. Double-minded. And the decisions that you make good decisions now, and you change your mind later. Has to do with the decisions we make too. This is what the RIV talks about that we get on. It has the original meaning of the Greek. Whole lot deeper meaning. I want you to understand that when a person who cannot make up his mind lives in a state of indecision, he's not like a man. He is a lot like a man with two heads. Imagine the horror of that. A man with two heads. Each head trying to dictate to him what he should think, what he should believe, or do. Indecision begins in one little area of our life, but it's so dangerous that if it's not stopped, it will begin to spill over into every area of our life. Until finally every path he travels on in life will be affected by that indecision, that double-mindedness. Think of it this way. This is one of the statistics that America has. Divorce doesn't happen because you've made a decision for a divorce. Divorce happens, the biggest percentage of it, money. You can't become one mind in your marriage over money. Maybe one likes to spend, maybe one likes to save, and you butt heads. The couple cannot make a concise decision and stay on course. So over 50% of marriages in America have a divorce rate because they're double-minded in their marriage, and God tells us to be one. It's a great visual for double-mindedness because they have two heads. They want to go in different directions. That doesn't work. So that's a great visual. So why is double-mindedness so dangerous to a believer's life? Because what remains unsettled in one area eventually spreads to every area of your life. That little argument that's stuck in the corner that you always argue with in the marriage scenario will haunt, will keep prodding, will keep poking out every so often because you have not settled that answer. And if you're not strong, and if you're not patient, and if you're not careful, the enemy will use that one little area to destroy two people's life together. That's what James is talking about that we do to ourselves. You know, we all have the little head over here telling us good and the little head over here telling us bad. And it will destroy us if we go, no, this is the decision. God's helped me make this decision. That's where I'm going and that's what I'm doing. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. What would happen if a man had two heads, both heads trying to tell him what to do? Well, you do. Every day you get up. Every Sunday morning, will I go to church or will I stay and sleep in? Will I do this or will I do that? Should I go to work or should I not? Should I quit? Should I not? Should I pay this bill and pay that one or should I not? You know, whatever you have that going on every day. But if you've not settled the decision, what are you going to do? Again, the RIV gives us a picture that we will never forget. That two-headed man. James compares a double-minded person to a man with two heads. Let's take this a little deeper. Two heads. Imagine the confusion in that life. Because this side's telling you to do this, this side's telling you to do that, and you're constantly in turmoil.
I call that conscience.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're constantly fighting. One head says go left, the other one says go right. We can't do that. So if you go one way, if you haven't settled it, you're always fighting yourself. I told you to go the other way. I don't know. You're driving in the vehicle. Us guys get lost. You ladies like to let us know how lost we got. I told you to go right when you went left. That's what happens in our mind. What if I would have never? What if I did? Double-mindedness. One says to trust God, the other says to trust yourself. One says believe, the other says just compromise. One says listen to the fear. Your fear is warning you. Yeah, fear is warning me to stay away from that rattlesnake or that crocodile that looks pretty hungry. That's fear. But fear is not telling me to make a decision, to advance myself, take that step. Fear is to protect us from danger. But taking that step may not be danger. It may be the enemy going, let's put fear in their head so they don't take that step. They don't improve themselves in this area or that area or do that because they don't go to that place or this place. This person isn't lacking information. He's suffering from internal conflict. Whew. We've been talking about it for the last couple weeks, the exhaustion that causes. I'm just so tired. Why am I always so tired? Because you got a boxing match going on in your head. Boom, 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 boom. He has two competing voices trying to control his life. Double-mindedness. And unfortunately, many believers live that way. Should I? Shouldn't I? Maybe not this time. I know what to do, but I don't do it today. I know I should go, but this is just so much easier. I'll just tell them I went here. And they'd always like that excuse, so I know I'll go there. They always use this one, so I'll tell them I did this. It's fascinating because part of them really do want to trust God. But part of them lets the fears of their life produce the outcome that they don't want to happen anyway because they listen to the fear. Part of them really wants to do God's will. But part of them really wants complete control over their life. Part of them believes the promises of God. And part of them still listen to the fear. That's not for me. It's just for you. Well, he won't do that for me because he don't like me. He don't love me. Look at me. Look how I am. There's no way God would do that for me. There's no way he can love a person like me. Which is a lie. The enemy's trying to push you and keep you in his camp. No wonder they're exhausted. They're constantly arguing with themselves. They're not schizophrenic. They're just hearing two voices in their head. They wake up today, they made decision A, and then they get all the progress done for decision A, and then they wake up tomorrow and go, I think I made the wrong decision. Then they go into B, and then they do all that, and then the next day it's C, and they get nowhere for 30 years in their life because they haven't made a decision. Every believer must eventually settle some things. They must settle that God's word is true, even when we don't like it. Because in your spiritual walk, you will hit a verse and it will go, I need to either do or don't do what that tells me. And I kind of enjoy what the enemy's got me doing right now, so I've got to struggle with that in my head until I decide to settle it, but you keep fighting it. And it's like, I feel so bad because I keep or don't. I feel so bad. I know this is right. And you have that conflict going on. We've got to settle that God's wisdom is trustworthy. That no matter what he tells us, is going to lead us to a better path. We got to stay on the yellow brick road. Because what happened to Dorothy and them when they got off the road? All the bad stuff happened to them. We've got to stay in God's wisdom. We got to settle that God's promises are dependable. You said you'll never leave me nor forsake me. So that means in the up and the down, you're always with me. You will always take care of me. Even though sometimes I ignored what you told me to do to take care of myself, and you would provide for me. Whew. That's tough. We got to realize that God's character never changes. Everything he does is for our good. But we have that other voice in there telling us that he's Zeus with a lightning bolt getting ready to strike us when we even look like we're thinking about doing something against him. And that's not who he is. He loves you so much, if you want to destroy yourself, he's going to let you. He's going to send people into your life and they'll be like, hey, you need to stop doing this. Shut up. Hey, you shouldn't do that. Stop. I ain't got to listen to you and your mumbo jumbo. And he's going to keep sending people until your heart gets so hard and he's going, have at it, my friend. When you're ready to come home, I'm standing right next to you. Because he still won't leave you. See, as a believer, we have promises that we can rely on. As a non-believer, we got to rely on his mercy and grace. Because how many people have those crisis moment prayers? If you get me out of this, I will always go. I will always say. I will always do. I'll never do that again. And God's sitting up there going, I have no obligation to answer your prayer because you are not my child. But I love you so much. Every so often he goes, I'll still take care of you. But we as believers have every right to go to him and say, Dad, you promised you'd take care of me. I need you. And he'd go, yes. It's not a maybe, it's yes. But if we have the double-mindedness going on, will Dad really take care of me? Maybe will, maybe won't. I don't know. Understand a non-believer doing that. But his kid? The more settled your heart becomes, the less control fear has over your life. Whew. Because every time that little fear pops up, God said this. And fear's got to go scampering away and make a new game plan on how to attack you. A person trying to stand in two boats drifting apart will eventually fall in the water. When you were kids, did you try to put two rafts together and try to stand on both rafts or inner tubes at the same time? What usually happened? You fell in the water. Instead of making a decision to get on one raft, you tried to stand on them both. And you fell in the water. But the problem wasn't the water. The problem was trying to stand in two places at once. The proverbial standing on both sides of the fence. Depends how tall that fence is, how much it's going to hurt, doesn't it? A divided mind eventually produces a divided life. Whew. But your indecisions never stay small. Remember the analogy? In a marriage, you start fighting over one little dinky little teeny thing, and you bring it up for 30 years. Eventually it's going to turn into a full-blown war. Because you didn't settle that one little teeny speck of thing that may or may not have been consequential at all. What if the issue you're trying to ignore today becomes the issue controlling your life tomorrow? Whew. Why do you always put your coffee cup on the counter? Why don't you put it in the sink? It's right there. And 10 years later, they got a divorce over the coffee cup. But the divorce papers will not say we've got a divorce over the coffee cup. The divorce paper will put some long list of things that she does wrong, he does wrong. We just don't love each other anymore. But on the honeymoon, that coffee cup that he didn't put in the sink, it's all she can think about. You can't clean up for yourself. And then it piles up. We missed the hamper and clothes fell on the floor. You can't clean up for yourself. Started from the coffee cup. Instead of having a cordial conversation, it's 3 inches over. This is why it irritates me that you can't put it in the sink. And then they become one. Okay, well that makes sense. I'll put this coffee cup in the sink from now on. And then the next little thing that irritates one or the other needs to have the same conversation. It isn't about the coffee cup. It's about the way they were raised. It's about their way they handle life, because now you have individuals trying to stay together. So she was raised and he was raised different, and they do things different, and now they got to try to figure out how to do it as one. And the little thing will continue to destroy the bigger picture. And we snicker and laugh But it really was that coffee cup that was placed on the counter 3 inches from the sink. Not even the argument about who's going to do the dishes tonight. But that's where the argument goes. That's what we hear and see. It all come down to the coffee cup being on the counter 3 inches away from the sink that explodes because that's all that person could think about all day. I gotta go home and clean their mess up. I gotta do the dishes. Always gotta do the dishes. And all they're thinking about is every morning the coffee cup. Because they haven't became one. Indecision begins in one little area, is what the RIV said. That's how instability works. It rarely begins with a major collapse. The first day of marriage, you didn't get a divorce because of the coffee cup. But 30 years later, you got a divorce because of the coffee cup. The little things. It usually starts very small. The coffee cup. A small fear. A small compromise. What's the big deal? It's just a coffee cup. Hey, you can put it in the sink. It's right there. The little things. Small compromise. Because you give in to him putting the coffee cup on the counter for 30 years. And finally you compromised. Instead of, we need to talk about this coffee cup. I'm not going to get mad about it, but we need to, why this irritates me so much. And in a healthy relationship, if we love each other, we understand why it irritates you, and we do our best not to irritate you. 3 inches. Destroys a relationship, a job opportunity, a business. Whew. A small area of hesitation. A small refusal to trust God. But instability never likes to stay constrained. It constantly tries to take ground. What begins in one area slowly spreads into another. A believer becomes unstable spiritually. Then they become unstable emotionally. Then they become unstable in their relationship. Then they become unstable financially. And these could interact. It could be different in whatever area, but it all starts to compound. Then their direction in life, for where they wanted to go and where they wanted to go, everything starts to go haywire. Eventually, indecision starts influencing every major decision. James wants us to understand that instability grows when it's tolerated. Whew. We've all seen it. We've all felt it in different areas of our life. We have a week really on fire for God. Next week, the worst week of our life as far as being on fire for God. And we're wondering what the heck is going on. Instability. We haven't settled it. And then it starts to overflow into every area of our life. Because the further we're away from God, the less loving we'll be in every interaction with our fellow humans. Think about it next time when you snarl and growl at somebody. I want you to seriously think about, how was my walk with God this week? And I guarantee you, you were further away from him than you needed to be. Because that's why the enemy was able to get you to snarl and growl at someone. Because you knew you were having a blah week with God. You didn't pray. You didn't read the word. You had a reason not to go to church, and all of a sudden that week was like, why'd we fight so much this week? Or why was work so terrible? How come everything just worked against me? And you look back and go, the enemy got the ball rolling, and I didn't have the peace of God to carry me through and help me make proper decisions, and it just worked against me. Double-mindedness becomes dangerous because instability spreads into areas we never intended it to affect. I can take care of every life, just let me have my little closet, Lord. But that little closet will overflow. Anybody with addiction will tell you that. Eventually that little closet will cause a fight, will cause a disturbance, will cause something else. And then, depending how far down the rabbit hole you go, maybe you're spending years in prison because of that little closet that you never took care of with God, and it caused an anger outburst and accidentally hurt someone, and now that little decision that I could keep the key to the closet to myself. Whew. Little decisions. Deal with instability early. Ask yourself, what truth am I resting on? Do I truly believe what you believe? What fear keeps returning to me? If I don't do this, I may lose them. And then you try too hard and you do lose them. If I don't do this, this could happen. And eventually it does happen because you're doing everything out of fear to not let that happen. And just like Job, what you fear happens. What decision am I avoiding to make that I know I am supposed to be making? I know I've got to cut those friends out of my life because it's causing me problems. I know you want me to do this, but it's comfortable. I know you don't want me to do this, but what's the big deal anyway? What has God already said to you that you refuse to say? That's a big one. That's a big one. We like to look at the symptoms more than the source of the problem. And you know the easiest example of that is? Turn your TV on. Hey Dwayne, we'll give you this pill. It'll take care of this. But it's going to cause you 100 other problems. But then we got 100 other pills we can keep giving you to take care of those problems that this pill caused. I'm just practicing on you anyway, buddy. Instead of, why does that hurt? We just cover it up. Give you a pill, cover it up. It ain't even a pain pill. It's a pill to cover that up and take that problem away, that symptoms away. Why am I dizzy? We'll give you dizzy medication. But why am I dizzy? Here's a pill. But the other 30 symptoms we'll have to deal with later once they kick in. Instead of, why am I dizzy? And it could be simple. I don't know. I don't know nothing about dizziness, but maybe it's because this thing that you eat causes you to be dizzy. And the doctor, if he's practiced enough, he should be able to tell the practice and go, hey, you know, just this weird thing. Do you eat this? Man, I love that. Well, when you go out on the boat, don't eat that. When you get on the plane, don't eat that. That's why you get dizzy. Something about the water, something about the air, and I found in my practice, when I practice on people that ate that, try it. We'll see if then we can get rid of the medication. I'm going to the problem, not to cover up symptoms of a problem. We use this phrase, why am I so? And put whatever you want on it. Why am I so angry all the time? Lord, take care of the anger. Well, the anger is the symptom. There is a deeper problem. So it isn't I say, why am I angry? Lord, what's causing me to be so angry when I do get angry? A teeny crack in a foundation may seem insignificant. But ignore it long enough, it eventually affects the whole structure. We've all had this one happen. You're driving down the road behind the big mean dump truck and you hear this tink. And you keep going, you don't think nothing of it, and then there's this little teeny speck on your window. You're like, oh, that stupid rock hit my window and put a little crack in it. Oh, it's not that bad. And you drive. And depending how long it takes, it starts to get that little crack. Now that's not too bad. And then eventually, a little bigger. And the longer you leave it, the bigger it gets, to where you can't see nothing. But that little pebble in our life, just like that little pebble on our windshield, that crack will get bigger and bigger and bigger if we don't take care of the problem. The solution is not to stop driving behind dump trucks. That will help. But it will not fix your window. The solution is to take it somewhere and get the window fixed. Or, like the commercial says, we'll come to you and get the window fixed. That's the solution. Unresolved instability always spreads. The little things will cause big things to happen if we don't take care of the little things. Whew. Every path is affected by what remains unsettled. What if the problem isn't the road you're walking on, but the instability you're carrying as you're walking in the road? Whew. Man. The RIV has this in there. Every path he travels in life will be affected by his indecisions. You do not make a decision to sit down and write your bills. What happens? They pile up, don't they? And what happens after that? Mommy, Daddy, there's something wrong with the light switch. What do you mean? I turn it on and nothing comes on. And all the light switches in the house are broke. What happened? Forgot to pay the bill, didn't I? And it isn't even a money problem. It's an indecision to when you know whenever your bill is due, you make a check. It isn't that you didn't have it. It isn't that you had to do what some of us have to do once in a while, as we say, rob Peter to pay Paul. You just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. You see that you need gas, and you keep putting it off, and you keep putting it off. I'll get it tomorrow. And you wonder why you're on the side of the road. Man. But that indecision isn't that you didn't have it. I'm guilty of, by the way. I like the truck that I used to have because I knew when that light come on, I had like 50 miles. So I knew I could go just about anywhere. With the little car, when a guy ran in my truck, it don't tell me the miles anymore. So I can't be as procrastinating about it. So I had to ask Chad. I said, hey, Chad, how far does this little stupid Kia that I have go when that light comes on? It's about 20 miles. Well, that's not very far. So now I got a smaller gas tank. So when it hits a quarter of the tank, my indecision kicks in. And I better get gas.
Yep.
I'll get it tomorrow. Then the little light comes on. And then I got to go, I have to get gas. And I'm somewhere, it's like, oh no. Where is the nearest gas station?
20 miles.
It's like, ooh. I should have did it yesterday when I was in town. Those are the little things. The procrastination. The indecision. I'm going to run out of room. Speed. I'm not going to get everything in. A double-mindedness becomes dangerous because eventually every area of our life is influenced by what remains unsettled in the heart. Settle your confidence again in God's character, His promises, His faithfulness, and His wisdom. The more settled your heart becomes, the more stable your path becomes. Whew. Man. A wheel with broken spokes still may move, but it will never run smoothly. Wholeness creates stability. I don't know. You may have even experienced this at one point. You go to the tire place to get a new tire, and whether you didn't pay for the $5 weight so that it runs smooth, the little stupid thing they tap on the side, or whether the guy neglected to put it on, you're going down the road and what the heck is going on? And the tire's bouncing like a basketball because it's not balanced. And the tire shop was just so busy they forgot to ask you if you wanted it. And then when they send the work order out to the guy, it's like, well, this is weird. How come Ivan, that customer, didn't want wheel balances on his tires? That's just kind of dumb. But they didn't pay the $5, so they ain't get it. I'll just air them up, put them on, and go on. And you're riding it. And you go back, man, these tires are wobbling and bouncing. It just doesn't feel right. Something's off. Can you check it out to see what the problem is? Because it wasn't like this before, even when I had the weird tires on there. And they come back, oh, yeah. I see you didn't want the wheel balance. I said, I didn't want the wheel balance. No one asked me. I didn't know I had to pay for that. They put the balance on there and it runs smooth. Maybe you've been like this too. You were riding a bicycle. Somehow got a flat tire. Well, the rim's round. It should still work, right? So you were as a kid. You're pedaling the rest of the way home on a flat tire and you're like, this is exhausting. That little bit of air and that little piece of rubber thing going around makes a lot of difference. That's life. You let the air out of your tire. You let the enemy steal the air out of your tire. And you're still assuming that metal rim, it's still round, it should work, it's not a square. And you're pedaling without the Holy Spirit and God's air in you. And you're trying to do it yourself. Man, that's tough. A divided mind produces a divided life. Double-mindedness creates internal conflict. Instability starts small. Unresolved instability always will spread into every area of your life. Fear grows when truth remains unsettled. Every path becomes affected by unresolved indecision. Stability begins in your heart. Maturity requires settled convictions. God's truth creates stability. A settled heart produces a stable life. So why is double-mindedness so dangerous? Because it never stays in one place. It starts to affect every area of your life. So ask yourself each day, what have I not fully settled about God? Say this, I refuse to live a double-minded life between fear and faith. I refuse to be double-minded between obedience and compromise. I will settle my confidence in God's character, His promises, and His wisdom. My heart will become stable. My faith will become steady. My life will become aligned with what I believe. Whew. James is teaching us that instability is not merely a decision problem. It's that heart problem that we talk about. Because whatever remains divided inside us eventually affects everything around us. But God does not leave us divided. He brings peace where there's conflict, stability where there's uncertainty, confidence where there's fear, wholeness where there's inconsistency. A believer who settles his heart before God will eventually discover that stability is not something he manufactures. The believer settles this. It is something God develops as faith, wisdom, endurance, and maturity through every area of life. That's what stability looks like. Whew. Eventually, James is going to get into some pretty hard stuff over the next month or so. Very specific stuff of what causes instability and what causes us to have to ask for that wisdom that he talked about throughout our struggles. So I can't wait to see what he's going to do next. See everybody next time.